Have you ever felt that every casual comment, every prolonged silence, each unskilled message becomes a dagger that directly crosses your heart? If you are constantly defensive, feeling that each interaction is a trial about your value as a person, you need to hear this. You are not being too sensitive, or you have very fine skin. What you are experiencing is something much deeper and more significant than most people understand. Carl Jung, the psychologist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche, understood that this extreme hypersensitivity is not a character failure, but an urgent sign of your unconscious. It is your shadow, that part of you that has been carrying the wounds of everything you were once forced to hide to be loved, desperately trying to be seen and healed. In this video, we are going to explore how work with Jung's shadow can completely transform your relationship with these intense reactions, freeing you from the prison to take everything personally and guiding you towards the authenticity and personal power you have always sought. Stay with me, because what you are going to discover can change forever the way you see yourself and your path towards the whole. Carl Jung understood that this hypersensitivity is not a failure of nature or emotional weakness. It is, in reality, an alarm signal of your unconscious, a desperate cry of the parts of it that have been rejected, denied, or buried so deeply that they now react with pain in the face of any stimulus that reminds them. When Jung spoke of the shadow eye, he referred precisely to this phenomenon, that part of us that carries the wounds of everything we were once forced to hide to be loved and accepted. The truth that few dare to say is that your extreme sensitivity is not your enemy. It is your guide towards the whole. Every time something insignificant affects you deeply, your shadow is trying to show yourself exactly where you need to heal, where you need to integrate the fragmented parts of your being. Jung knew that the psyche does not waste energy in meaningless reactions. Each intense emotional response is an invitation to descend to the depths of your soul and rescue the buried treasures there. This constant reactivity is, paradoxically, a sign that you are ready for the most important work of your life, the conscious encounter with your shadow. Because only when you stop fleeing these reactions and you start listening to what they are really telling you, you can start the process of individuation that Jung considered the highest purpose of human existence. Imagine that since you were a child, you have been carrying an invisible psychic backpack, filling it with each part of you that the world told you it was too much, too sensitive, too angry, too sad, too demanding, too bright, too powerful. Jung called this backpack the shadow, and understood that it is formed in the first years of life when we learn, through disapproval looks, cutting words, or icy silences, what aspects of us are acceptable and which should be hidden to survive emotionally. Your shadow is not evil. It is the guardian of your lost authenticity. Every time a father frowned at your anger, every time a teacher made you feel that your creativity was inappropriate, every time you learned that certain emotions or impulses were incorrect, those parts of you did not disappear. They took refuge in the unconscious, forming autonomous complexes that now react from the shadows when something in the present touches those ancient wounds. Jung understood that these complexes have their own life and can kidnap our emotional response in seconds. What makes this process so painful is that the shadow not only contains what we consider negative, he also keeps our most precious gifts, that natural confidence that we had to hide so as not to threaten others, that wild creativity that was domesticated, that powerful intuition that was silenced for being little practical. Jung knew that the shadow is both the deposit of our traumas and the treasure of our unrealized potential. The projection is the mechanism by which the shadow is manifested in our relationships. When we cannot see or accept certain aspects of ourselves, we unconsciously project them in others. That person who irritates you deeply is probably reflecting something that you cannot tolerate in yourself. That comment that you interpreted as a personal attack perhaps touched a truth about you that your shadow has been trying to keep hidden. Jung understood that until we claim these projections, we will continue to live in a world of distorted mirrors, reacting to our own wounds reflected in others. Work with the shadow is not a process of elimination or suppression. It is a radical act of claiming your totality. Jung understood that individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, requires the courage to face and embrace all parts of you, especially those that you have learned to fear or despise. It's not about getting rid of your ego or silencing your emotions. It is about creating a conscious and compassionate relationship with all aspects of your psyche. This work requires brutal honesty with yourself. It means admitting that yes, you are jealous, yes, you can be manipulative, yes, you are hungry for power or recognition. But it also means recognizing that you have a deep wisdom that you have been hiding, a force that you have been minimizing, a creativity that you have been suffocating. Jung knew that the shadow contains both our demons and our angels, and both need to be integrated to achieve totality. Emotional triggers become your most valuable teachers in this process. Every time you react disproportionately, every time you feel deeply injured by something apparently lower, your shadow is raising your hand saying, "Here, look at me. I need to be seen and healed." Jung developed the technique of active imagination precisely for these moments. The ability to consciously dialogue with these parts of you, to ask them what they need, what they are trying to protect, what gift they are trying to give you. Compassion, not control, is the key to this process. Jung understood that the shadow cannot be dominated or forced to submission. It must be invited to consciousness with curiosity and love. When you stop fighting these parts of yourself and start listening to them, something magical happens. The energy that was previously spent on repression and self-defense is released and transforms into authentic personal power. This is the true meaning of Jung's transcendent function, the ability to maintain tension between opposites until a third option emerges, a synthesis that includes and transcends both extremes. When you begin to integrate your shadow, something extraordinary happens. The psychic energy that was previously consumed to maintain the facade of your person, in defending yourself with imaginary threats and in seeking constant external validation, is released and transforms into a pure creative force. Jung understood that this energy release is not just psychological, it is spiritual. It is the time when you stop living from fear and start living from your authentic center, from what he called the self, your deepest totality. The authenticity that emerges from this process is not a pose or an attitude. It is a natural magnetism that arises when you no longer need to hide parts of yourself. People can feel when someone is complete, when they have made peace with their shadows and is no longer projecting their wounds not healed in the world. This psychic integrity creates a presence that does not need to be explained or constantly justified because it is rooted in the truth of who you really are. Emotional triggers do not disappear completely, but your relationship with them is radically transformed. Instead of automatically reacting from old wounds, you develop the ability to pause, to ask yourself, what part of me is feeling threatened? Here? What does this part need to feel safe? Jung called this the conscious answer versus the unconscious reaction. It is the difference between being a victim of your complexes and being the conscious director of your psychic life. Perhaps the most surprising is how the integration of the shadow unlocks your creative and spiritual potential. Jung noted that many of the most significant advances in art, science, and spirituality come from people willing to explore their darkness with curiosity instead of fear. Your shadow is not just the deposit of your traumas, it is also the warehouse of your unpasted genius, of your unique gifts that were suppressed because they did not fit into the expectations of others. When you claim these parts of you, not just healthy, you become who you were always destined to be. The next time you feel that family stab of taking something personally, remember this. It is not a sign of weakness or hypersensitivity. It is your shadow touching your shoulder, whispering that there is a part of you that feels invisible, not heard, not loved, and that it is desperate to be recognized and integrated. Jung understood that these moments of vulnerability are actually portals towards the whole, invitations of your deepest psyche to embark on the most important work of your life. Become who you really are. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is the missing piece of your personal power. It is the guardian of all aspects of IT that were judged, rejected, or considered unacceptable, but that are essential for your complete individuation. Jung knew that the true psychological maturity does not come from perfecting an image of yourself, but of embracing the entire humanity, including the parts you prefer to keep hidden. Every time you are reacting intensely to something apparently lower, Practice the sacred pause. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this situation? What part of my shadow is feeling threatened? What does this part need to feel safe and seen? This simple act of conscious curiosity can transform an emotional trigger into an opportunity for healing and integration. The path of the individuation that Jung described is not easy, but it is the only way to real freedom. It is the recognition that you do not need to be universally loved or perfect to be valuable. You need to be real, complete, and authentic. Your sensitivity, your reactivity, your deepest wounds are not failures in your design. They are the keys that will guide you back home, back to all who you have always been. And that, dear search engine, is not a weakness. It is your deepest superpower. The next time you feel that family stab of taking something personally, remember that it is not a weakness, but a sacred invitation of your shadow to embark on the most transformative work of your life. Jung showed us that these moments of vulnerability are portals towards the whole, opportunities to claim the lost parties of ourselves and become those who are really destined to be. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is the guardian of your most authentic power. Each intense reaction, every emotional trigger, every moment in which you feel deeply injured is a golden opportunity to practice conscious curiosity and ask you, what part of me needs to be seen and loved here? I would love to know. What of this exploration about work with the shadow resonated more deeply with you? How is your individuation process manifesting in your daily life? Share your experience in comments. Your story matters and can be exactly what another search engine needs to hear today. If this content touched something deep in you, be sure to subscribe in the name of the channel for more Jungian explorations that go directly to the heart of personal transformation. Like if you feel that this message arrived at the perfect moment, and activates notifications because this channel is for deep thinkers like you, for those who are tired of pretending and ready to embrace their entirety. Remember, you are not broken, you are becoming. Your sensitivity is your superpower, and your path to individuation is sacred. Until next time, and never forget that your authentic light is exactly what the world needs.